Dragons are Dinosaurs, Medieval Sightings Part 2. It's interesting to me that there are so many dragon sightings in Britain in the Middle Ages, and from so many different sources. One of the most famous is St Columba's meeting with what we would now call the Loch Ness Monster in 565 AD. The incident is recorded by Adomnán of Iona, a 7th century abbot and relative of the saint, in the Vita Columbae, or the Life of St Columba. According to Adomnán's account, while travelling along River Ness, Columba came upon a group of Picts burying a man said to have been dragged underwater and killed by an unknown beast in the water. One of Columba's companions decided to cross the river himself and is subsequently pursued by the creature, which opens its jaws with a terrible roar. Columba saves his friends by making the sign of the cross and commanding the monster to go no further nor touch the man, go back with all speed. The creature beats a hasty retreat, and the astonished Picts glorify God. Another sighting from the year 793 AD was recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. This year, dire forewarnings came over the land of the Northumbrians and miserably terrified the people. These were excessive whirlwinds and lightnings, and fiery dragons were seen flying in the air. A great famine soon followed these tokens, and a little after that, in the same year, on the 6th of the Ides of January, that is the 8th of January, the ravaging of heathen men lamentably destroyed God's church at Lindisfarne through rapine and slaughter. So in these reports we see a monster that lived in water and dragons that flew. Both types of creature, as we saw in a previous video, were recorded in Beowulf. Dragons are everywhere in medieval literature. In Geoffrey of Monmouth's 12th century history of Britain, we have the famous dragon prophecy, where the red British dragon fights the white Saxon dragon. This is not an actual sighting, but it does show how prevalent dragons were in the culture of the time. During the Middle Ages, dragons were reported in every region of Britain. A good list of 29 different sightings is given on the web page British Dragons. The link for this is shown here. I have limited my own interest to the county of Somerset because I couldn't possibly follow up all the hundreds of sightings that have been recorded around the country. As I showed in the first Dragons are Dinosaurs video, Somerset was perfect habitat for dinosaurs because it was close to the sea and full of marshes where dragons could rest and support their body weight. Since the flood of Noah and the reduced oxygen levels in the air, dragons always struggled to find habitats where they could survive. I am reproducing here a chart to remind us of some of the Somerset dragon sightings. So we've got here 10 different villages, places in Somerset where dragons were sighted. The stories actually come down through folklore, and many of them were from the Middle Ages and handed down orally and recorded in folklore magazines and articles. The point I want to make here is that in just one county, we can find all the dragons, monsters mentioned in the Epic of Beowulf. This is more evidence that there were distinct species of dragon, and they were all relatable to dinosaur species. I think I've laboured this point enough, so I want to finish by reproducing the Dragons are Dinosaurs chart that I showed in a previous video, and relate each creature to a dragon sighting in Somerset. If you're interested in this subject and want more details, I would recommend Brian Wright's book, Somerset Dragons. So we can see here the chart I showed in a previous video, but I've added in some places in Somerset where dragons have been sighted. So we've got Wormkind, that's the Saxon word for the whole race of monsters and serpents that we call dinosaurs. And Brian Wright writes in his book Somerset Dragons, the dragons of Somerset show almost a complete range of types, characteristics, habitats and profession of their slayers, and represent a good overall spread of British dragon legend. He calls it legend, of course. I believe people did actually see these creatures. We've got the sea dragons, such as the ichthyosaur. In the village of Kill, the dragon called Blue Ben went into the sea to cool off that got stuck in the mud and drowned when the tide came in. So a fossil of an ichthyosaur has actually been found at this location, and you can still see ichthyosaurs in Taunton Museum. Then we've got the Nikor, or the Nuka, a water-dwelling dragon, which is maybe a pliosaur. In the village of Hals, the church of St James contains a benshen showing a sea dragon with fin-like wings. It has no legs and its body is covered in scales. Then we've got the wermus, or serpent, similar to a mosasaur dinosaur. In the village of Shervidge Wood, the girt worm, or great worm, was recorded as being cut in half by a villager from Stigumba. One half ran to Bilbrook, the other to Kingston St Mary. Then we've got the Ithgawinus, the wave thrasher, similar to a Spinosaurus. In the village of Bicknola, there's a belief still held today by locals that a dying dragon will try and reach the sea. The Dragon House Hotel now stands at Bilbrook near Dragon's Cross, which marks the spot where a dragon died while trying to reach the sea. The lift flogger, the air flyers, maybe pterosaurs. In the village of Allah, the dragon of Allah breathed poison and had the shape of a great flying serpent. It terrorized the neighborhood until killed with a spear by a knight called John of Allah. Then we've got the wide flogger, or the wide flyers, maybe pterodactyls. In Somerset we have the wyvern. The wyvern is a form of dragon that can be seen in carvings and stained glass windows all over Somerset. It has 2 legs and wings. The name derives from the Anglo-Saxon word wyver, or a serpent. The flag of Somerset has a wyvern on it. Then we've got the Lig Dragger, or fire dragon. In the village of Kingston St Mary, a dragon lived nearby and breathed out flames, which it used to cook its animal and human victims. A villager rolled a large stone down a hill into its mouth and killed it. We've got the Grendel, maybe a velociraptor. In the village of Norton Fitzwarren, a man-eating dragon which lived in an Iron-Age hill fort was killed by a local man named Fulk Fitzwarren. Then finally the Mix Stapper, or the Marsh Stepper, maybe something like a Stegosaurus. In the village of Carhampton, a Celtic saint named St Carantoc defeated a dragon which lived on the local marshes. So that's just more evidence that dragons were real. All the different types were actually seen in one county, as well as being seen all over the country. What I'd like to do in the next video is look at the spiritual and prophetic significance of dragons. Thank you for listening. If you found this video interesting, you can find more information at prophecy-workshop.com.